Did you want one?
So I don't think I have a specific answer for this, but I think normally the hardest challenges that I face are cultural more than the actual design or kind of customer experience element of things. So normally the place that I have to give my most attention to is where are people now? What relationships do I need to build? And how can I change their mindset or create their buy-in? Exactly as you were talking about earlier on, like how do I create the buy-in so that they trust me when I'm laying out this experience for them?
I think the hardest thing, like I've worked at a lot of companies where you've inherited dogs, right? And you're like they've hired the UXer, you're going to fix everything. And you're looking at this thing and you're like, where do I start? Like this thing is just horrific. And you know, my phrase now is people, I was just saying to Megan earlier, we've inherited internal systems, and there's been this product that they've done for 18 months and they're very proud of it. It's a procurement system. And I looked at it and they said, oh, so what would you do to fix it? Because we're having a lot of feedback that it's very hard to use and blah, and I just said, burn it. Like, you know, it's just like you get to a stage where you're like, I don't want to deal with this. But I think the hardest thing is often when you've got to rework these things. And so part of it, there's a couple of key things, like as a designer, you can start to break it apart and say, okay, what are the most common used tasks? Is this reflected in the interface? There's things like functionality by frequency matrix that are really useful for that type of stuff, because you can backwards engineer an interface and say, if I'm looking at this is what this interface is telling me. And these are the most commonly used tasks, and basically take it back, and is that right or not? You know, and often stakeholders will go, well, no, that's not what this is designed for at all. But the key thing I've always found is people and videoing them or putting them through the experience of the main 5 top tasks, taping that stuff and letting stakeholders see and feel that pain is very compelling. And then they're suddenly like, okay, we've got a lot of work to do, and they'll kind of start to invest in that. So it's really important. Like, you could just be saying, this is terrible, this is thing, blah, blah, blah. But it's about getting some momentum and some feedback into that, and that just keeps on driving that project. So we had this, I think about this interface that, again, you're always educating stakeholders who come in. And we acquired a product. So it had not been designed with any of our design principles. It was a desktop software, and we're a SaaS solution. And so everything was just fundamentally wrong. And the GM had never done product development before. And she was like, oh, okay, so can you kind of just put the logo on it and then it will be kind of the same? And this is it's part of an end-to-end experience. And so what I did was I just put an Aconex person who would then be going through from this product to that product and just tape the experience for her and sat her through those sessions, and she was like, what do we do? So it's about getting that understanding, and then they'll come with you on that journey as well. So I think part of it is the stakeholders. You've got to get them on board to take that journey, because you're not going to be able to change something that bad really quickly.
Yeah, I don't have a specific example that comes to mind, but like I totally agree with what Kirsten was saying as far as showing the videos of people interacting with this thing, like if it's a dog of a program or it's like something that's actually just a really big problem that you're having difficulty getting traction and actually getting that improved and getting it on the roadmap. I mean, there's nothing that speaks louder than, just video clips of some like people interacting with something that's really difficult, and the long, awkward silences as they struggle to understand an interface. Those things are gold and just really help get some good cut through in getting things moving.
When you're sort of transitioning in your career from being a contributor to a manager or taking on that leadership role, what do you feel like you have to sort of let go of a little bit, and what do you feel like you take on board?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that one of the things that I've really had to change in my mindset is observing the way that different people work within the team. Being a core contributor, like you've got your own kind of way of doing stuff. When you step back and you're being like more of a leader in that situation, you really have to appreciate that other people come to great conclusions in different ways as well. I would say that has been a big change for me. and not just making assumptions as to, oh, that person's not doing it the way that I would, so that's going to be wrong. And that's been quite difficult as well. But yeah, great learning experience.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one. I think it's kind of what I think it's a difference between a lead and a manager, where often you're still owning the design if you're leading, where if you're going into a manager role, you do want to be able to step back and let somebody else lead that design. Otherwise, I think the main mistake I've made in the past is that I've given too much direction or guidance and then they don't own it. So suddenly any problem that's coming up, it's actually your design, right? So you're like coming back and they're not feeling that ownership. So it's about being able to step back. And so now I'll probably just sound more and say, okay, well, what would you do in this situation? Or something might be right and you might be able to see, actually, that's going to cause a problem down there and down and there. So it's getting people to work through and talk through that so they get the same realisation versus you just mapping it out and laying everything out for them.
I don't know. I'm not a manager. I'm still a contributor. I've just got to the stage where I've started mentoring people, which feels like a big step for me. It's been really interesting. It's very interesting trying to teach the things that you know. And being a UXer, certainly the way that I've kind of ended up in the career, I feel like a lot of stuff is just kind of in my blood. And it's very strange having to articulate that to people and actually explain it. And I found that a really lovely process to go through. And I'm like, oh, I now know stuff. And I probably knew it before, but I just never realized that I did. But yeah, management, I'm not there yet.
I'd say the only other thing for me with that is when you're basically going through and you're saying, okay, it's kind of what Megan was touching on too, personalities. Like, so not everybody is going to be the same as you. And there's really interesting, I think probably a number of years ago I would notice like a lot of people were kind of similar to me that I was recruiting as well, which it's kind of a different diversity thing, right? Like you're getting thinking, and there might have been guys and girls and all the rest, but we're kind of a bit the same. So it was also saying, no, we can't have this kind of type there as well, and that's consciously. And what you find is, like, I would be letting my team interview and everything too. They were trying to pick people who are like them as well. So deliberately, a number of years ago, I just said, no, we need. Like I was trying to look for different kind of personalities and types to put into the team, and it was something that I consciously had to kind of take a look at and think, you don't want the same. It is kind of something that comes from that.
So just going on from that and thinking about diversity and adding different personalities, so you get that sort of brief whenever you're recruiting and they say, no, we need to look for people who fit into the culture and fit in with the agency, organisation, whatever. So how do you actually deal with that in terms of selling them the vision and what happens at the other side when that person comes in and is so totally different that you don't, what would you do in that situation?
So I suppose, is Kirsten here tonight? I actually was talking about this the other day. We were doing it. She was talking about recruitment and how do you deal with, if you're somebody who's trying to get into the industry or you're trying to get to your next job, what do you do? And, how do you position? Because everybody's looking for seniors and blah, blah, blah. And I think for me, it's what I've always looked for. What's the life experiences or the skill sets that somebody's bringing to this role? So they might have been doing something totally different, but it's kind of related in some way, and saying, okay, then how is that going to be applied? So one of my best designers, for example, was an actor for 25 years. And you'd say, what the hell? And he's incredible because acting gives you all of this foundation that we don't think about as UXers, but just facilitation, storytelling, being able to see a vision into build a story, and through that you're doing through the interface. So that would be a recruit that a lot of people would have overlooked, I think, and said no. But so for me, it's like cultural fit is about attitude. That's for me at least, where it's like, what is the attitude that this person has? Are they tenacious? Are they going to be, we didn't win, forget about it? I want somebody who's going to keep pushing and keep going and things like that. So I'm looking for that type of pattern in what they've done before. And again, everybody's kind of different, but I think with briefing agencies, it's ultimately what is the outcome you're looking for from those people. And so it's not all about, I've got people who are really quiet in my team and, they kind of, they're the introverts. But the balance that they give and what they give in another perspective is fantastic. So Matt, for example, who's back up the room, when we've talked about people we recruit, it's about ultimately that they're going to fit from a cultural perspective with this. They're going to keep going. They're going to do what has to be done. And they're going to try. Like, this is the thing. It's the failure stuff is so important that they're going to give something a go and learn. So when one of the questions I'll say in an interview, so if you're ever interviewing with me, you'll know, is I'm really interested in what people have done in the past. So give me an example of where you fucked up. Like, that's what I want to know. And what I'm interested in from that is, what did you learn? And so when there's two types of people, they'll go, oh, I've never really done anything. And I was like, bullshit. Like, that's really, I'm stuffing up all the time. You're amazing. But, I've never really had any things. But also if they go, oh, yeah, they're stuffed up, and there's no learnings from it, because that's where you're developing. It's those projects that just kill you is where you learn the most from. So that's kind of what I'm really looking for. Sorry, I've gone around a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that looking to recruit people and encourage a lot more diversity and, I guess, an inclusive workplace, it's quite confronting to be deliberately employing people who you think may be challenging for you or very different for you to work with. But so long as you're not setting up this person for failure and they're still going to, it's still a good fit for them and it's moving the team forward, I think that's it's a good thing. It's certainly a very challenging and difficult thing to overcome. But I think so long as you've got plenty of people from the team involved in that recruitment process and everyone's keen with moving ahead with this particular candidate and willing to kind of step outside their comfort zone and challenge themselves and try something new, I think that's you're going to result in a good outcome.
So I'm probably going to come at this from a slightly different angle. So I get quite a lot of women that come to me asking for advice and support when they're looking to either transition into UX or looking to kind of promote themselves up the rung of the ladder. And there's a couple of pieces of advice that I always give. So the first one is be true to yourself. If you go into a job interview and you pretend to be someone that you're not, you're going to fail in that role. And you're not necessarily going to fail because you are wrong or you were bad or the company is bad. It's because you missold yourself and the company misbought something. So always be true to yourself. There's obviously things in life that we are willing to compromise with, but understand the fundamentals that make you who you are and don't compromise on those. Otherwise, you're going to take a job that isn't right for you. So the second thing that I say as part of that is when you start the recruitment process, I always suggest write a list of what it is that you are looking for. And depending on where you are in your career, that could be very different things. So that could be location, it could be salary, it could be mentorship, it could be the types of projects that you're working on. But write down a list of those things that you are definitely not going to budge on, the things that you are absolutely looking for. I've definitely done this in the past. You go for a job, someone offers you the job and you feel incredibly flattered that they've offered you something. You think, oh my goodness, that was so nice of you. Oh my God, you must think I'm really nice. Yeah, of course I'll take it. You must like me. That's brilliant. And then you turn up on the first day and you're like, oh, hang on a second. This isn't actually what I wanted. I just never went back to my list and looked at it. So having that list and keeping yourself true through that process, going back and saying, okay, actually, is this what I'm wanting? Is this the next step for me or the right step for me? I think is really important.
Just on that, I accepted a job because I thought, oh my God, this is a great company to work for. They really like me. I think that this will be great. Yeah, okay, maybe it's not 100% what I think that I'm looking for, but let's give it a go. I quit on the second day. What a fuck up. The end.